The Sonic the Hedgehog movie got off to a rocky start, what with his weirdly small eyes and far too many teeth. But thanks to an outpouring of displeasure from the internet, he sped into theaters this week with a brand new look, and a whole lot more going on for him. While we had a great time in the movie theater, we couldn't help but notice a ton of pretty significant changes from the video game source material. Check out the video below for all of the inside details from the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Don't hurt him!
Until seeing the trailer for the very first time, we pretty much just assumed that there was no way to stop Sonic. We figured since he is just so darn fast that he couldn't be hit by bullets or any other fast-moving object that might come flying at him. And yet, the movie proved us wrong. We see James Marsden's character, Tom Wachowski, actually shoot poor Sonic with a tranquilizer dart, and it works. You'd think that Sonic would be able to see the dart coming long before it got anywhere near him and would be able to outrun it. Yet somehow, it manages to not only make contact, but whatever serum Wachowski has filled that dart with was enough to take down an alien hedgehog. It's clearly a moment of putting plot before the character's backstory, seeing how this is the creature who was easily able to dodge a million missiles like the best kid at dodgeball in gym class. But hey, it works in the movie. And seeing as how we're able to suspend our disbelief when it comes to Sonic existing altogether, the whole dart thing really isn't that big of a deal. If you're a fan of the games, then chances are you know exactly what Sonic looked like back in the day. And while his features have improved like crazy since the original trailer fiasco, there are still some big differences in the way that Sonic looks all around. One of the biggest things that fans noticed right away is the fact that his arms look totally different. In the game, Sonic has always had beige-colored arms that match the circle on his stomach, almost as though he's wearing a blue, sleeveless unitard with a big circle cut out of the middle. Weirdly, this new version of Sonic has blue, fur-covered arms. Now, instead of the Sonic that we're used to in his cool racing outfit, this movie offers up a naked blue hedgehog, whose only items of clothing are a giant pair of gloves and some red shoes. At least they added the gloves, as when the second trailer dropped, he only had white fur covering his hands. While he no longer looks like the sleep paralysis demon who visits us in the night, it's still a little strange to behold. For some reason, even though this movie exists in our universe with a few big exceptions, we're totally hung up on one thing: Sonic's shoes. Call us Carrie Bradshaw, but we're obsessed. Thankfully, they didn't get rid of his classic red sneakers altogether and replace them with some red fur or anything like that. But we do have a few technical bones to pick with Sonic and his pumped-up kicks. Ugh, sorry, we couldn't help ourselves. Anyway, Sonic is seen in the movie with his signature red shoes from the video games, which we always just kind of assumed were the same pair. And yet, in the movie, we get a shot of Sonic in the cave where he lives, which also happens to feature a giant pile of other shoes. Wait a second, why does he have so many other shoes? Is the idea that he always has to replace them because they wear out too quickly? And if that's the case, then where is he getting all of these shoes? It's not like he can just walk into a Foot Locker and ask one of the salespeople where they keep their alien hedgehog-sized sneakers. Or maybe he just orders them in bulk from his home planet. But we can't imagine that being an easy process whatsoever. Okay, we don't have all the answers to these questions, but if you have thoughts on the matter, we would love to hear them. The number one thing that fans were worried about when the first Sonic trailer dropped was definitely the design of the main guy himself, but there were also some questions raised about the movie's villain, Dr. Robotnik. While no one doubted that Jim Carrey would be able to bring the bad guy to life, there were a few things about his costume that gave us all pause. When we first saw him, he appears in an outfit that is perfect for a bad guy, but looks nothing like the Robotnik we're used to from the games. When we think of Robotnik, we think of a round man in a bright red jacket, complete with yellow cuffs, yellow buttons, steampunk-looking goggles, and the biggest mustache you could ever imagine. Luckily, Jim Carrey does sport this look during the movie, though it's considerably more toned down. But he also rocks a few different other looks. His preference definitely seems to be the sleek all-black outfit with his tailor jacket and bad guy sunglasses, and honestly, we don't blame him. It's a pretty good look, and a whole lot more sinister than the red marching band jacket that the character has rocked in the games. Weirdly enough, in all of the years we've spent playing the Sonic video games, even though we know he is a hedgehog, we never really imagined him with quills. He's always been, well, pretty smooth. Sure, he has his giant spiky hair, but until we saw him fully rendered into photorealistic 3D, we kind of forgot that he would actually be covered in pointy quills. In the movie, he does look more furry rather than spiky, but the fact that he sheds these quills is a pretty major aspect of the plot. Both Wachowski and Robotnik interact with Sonic's discarded spikes, and there's something else about them that we can't ignore either. They are pulsing with a sort of blue energy that actually electrocutes Robotnik when he tests out licking one. Why he decided to lick a discarded pulsing animal quill is a whole other story for another day. This does seem to suggest that Sonic's power is actually located in his quills, though, and that they might actually be the source of his super speed abilities. When we got a brief glimpse of Dr. Robotnik in a Mad Max-style shot from the trailer, surrounded by giant mushrooms, the first thing that came to our mind was Mushroom Hill Zone. We were so excited to get to check out a fully realized version of this iconic level in the movie, and while it might not have looked just like it did in the games, we definitely saw it, and there were definitely mushrooms. If you're not familiar, the Mushroom Hill Zone is the first level of the Sonic and Knuckles game, and the 7th zone of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. The zone is known for, well, all of the different types of mushrooms that grow there. In the games, it is portrayed as a lush, green, forest type of area, but in the movie, it looks a whole lot different. Instead of Mushroom Zone, it is referred to as the Mushroom Planet, and we catch our first glimpse of it on Sonic's map. And then again, much later in the movie, we get to the scene in which Robotnik is transported there when Sonic sends him through a ring. Like we touched on earlier, the zone is a little more Mad Max and a little less lush green forest, but it still looks pretty cool. One of the biggest surprises about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is that sometimes it doesn't even feel like much of a Sonic movie. Even on the poster, the two top-billed actors were Jim Carrey and James Marsden, not Jean-Ralphio, we mean Ben Schwartz, the actor who voices the little blue guy. While Sonic is a huge part of the movie for sure, the rest of the characters are all humans, and aside from Robotnik, they're not even from the games. We really would have loved to see a Sonic movie that took place on Sonic's planet a whole lot more than for just a few key scenes. While there are little Easter eggs and hints throughout the movie that remind us of where the story came from, what we're missing is a whole lot more plot that is actually about the world that Sonic developed from. At times, it even feels like you could replace Sonic with any other alien and get pretty much the same effect. We hoped that the Sonic movie would feature the iconic rings, because how could it not? And luckily for us, we were right. They even slipped in an awesome Easter egg and replaced the ring around the Paramount logo with 22 of the classic rotating gold rings from Sonic. As they complete the circle, they even added in the oh-so-familiar plinky sound, sending the movie off on the right foot. But it was clear as the movie went on that they were reinventing the rings altogether and making them something completely different. Instead of just something to be collected, Sonic can actually use the rings in the movie to open portals to different places and planets. He uses them more than once throughout the film. First, in order to save Tom and Maddie from falling off of a building, and then when he sends Robotnik to that mushroom planet that we talked about before. This is actually one change that we think is a really cool, creative way to bring Sonic to the big screen and update a classic favorite while still keeping with the spirit of the games. Finally, one of the biggest changes that the movie decided to make was the decision to confirm that Sonic is actually an alien. But they aren't the first to do this. In fact, some argue that all of the games are also wrong about that fact, and that Sonic himself is actually from Nebraska. The games never mentioned it outright, so the first time anyone has actually explicitly stated this fact is now in this brand new movie. Long ago, one of the creators of Sonic, Madeline Schrader, actually published a 13-page history of the character. Unfortunately, this document has mostly been ignored by the game creators and clearly the makers of this movie. But it states, very plainly, that Sonic was born on Earth in the 20th century in the town of Harley, Nebraska. It's right there in the first few lines. On one hand, maybe it is more compelling for a kids' movie to have a blue hedgehog from outer space, and that a Fargo-style origin story might not have provided the same impact. But still, they straight up ignored this. They changed so much in Sonic the movie, and yet they still managed to retain the spirit of Sonic, so we're feeling pretty good about the whole thing. What about you? Are you a fan of this new reinvention? Or did you have different feelings about the whole thing? What was the biggest change you saw? What was your favorite part of the movie? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up with all of the latest from Screen Rant.